You can also now watch Packard Pokes At on Atheism TV at youtube.com/atheismtv and, as always, on youtube.com/Packard Pokes At. Come to the live show and chat with us on Friday nights at 9 p.m. Central Time on vonlive.tv/Packard Pokes At. See you there!
Do you really like Packard Pokes At and want to promote the show? Then go to cafepress.com/Packard Pokes At. There are hundreds of items available, including hats, shirts, hoodies, and so much more. Every purchase from cafepress.com/Packard Pokes At helps support the show. Your Packard Pokes At coffee mug is waiting for you.
Do you want to stream Packard Pokes At on your iPhone or BlackBerry? Download Stitcher free today at Stitcher.com. Stitcher Smart Radio, the smarter way to listen to radio.
You're on in 3, 2, 1.
This is Packard Pokes At, and I'm poking at your news. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another fine edition of Packard Pokes At. I am your immutable and sometimes technically challenged host, Packard Sonic. Joining us tonight from the far, far East Coast is Joe Unseen.
I was wondering if you have Happy Scrappy Hero Pup. It's her favorite movie.
I keep it in my living room all the time. And I got Hero Pop Chow and the whole 9 yards. I have no idea.
Happy Scrappy!
I have no idea what you're talking about, Joe. But when do I ever? No, I'm just kidding. And joining us from the far, just east of me anyway, is Dave, you're damned.
Chow. Joe, is he related to Scrappy Doo?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay, good. And join us for our interview tonight is our very special guest is Dave Fitzgerald, the author of Nailed.
That's right. Hello from foggy but beautiful San Francisco.
Yes, he is out in California land. He's out there visiting Medusa. No, he lives out there.
Hey, Dave, is it true that they call drizzle out there heavy fog?
There's nothing but heavy fog out here. That's we call it an average day.
Yeah, I hear it's always usually quite foggy out there.
Especially in the summertime.
Well,
it's crazy cold in the summertime.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think we're on Australian rules.
There you
climate.
go. There you go. All right, well, let's get on to our first topic for this evening.
Building a better future, science and technology.
Beef. It's what's not for dinner. Well, in this case, it's stem cell beef that's what's for dinner. Scientists are working on a way to try to put together beef without having to actually kill the cow. They take about 20,000 stem cells, that are strands anyway, just to create just one little hamburger. Now, the thing with these stem cell burgers is that there is no blood in them and no fat. So, and where's all the taste? In the fat. They've taken some of these burgers that they've made now, which these burgers are $332,000 a burger. Now, they've asked people if you wanted to taste this burger, and I thought about it, and I said, if it is flavorless and colorless and everything, because they actually have to add extra chemicals to make it look good and taste good and everything like that. But the fact is, to taste a burger that costs that much. Oh, now there's some bragging rights right there. Joe, your thoughts?
Yeah, this is a fantastic advance for science and technology because now Lady Gaga can ethically wear meat dresses. She could probably even have them grown to custom fit her, which is a huge advance in meat dresses.
It's form-fitting and tastes good.
Yeah, this story is really interesting. They're hoping to one day change meat production to make it more environmental, and that's cool. Mm-hmm. The article included a video which featured a guy wearing Google glasses, and I just wanted to smack them right off his face. So I looked for a video that I had seen on the news last week about this, mm-hmm. where they actually fed it to, I guess she was like a food expert or a restaurateur or something, but she tried it, and they said, well, what do you think? What does it taste like? And she was like, well, I was expecting it to be a little softer, and I know there's not a lot of fat in it, so it's very lean. Mm-hmm. And so that makes me think game meat. It probably tastes very gamey.
Interesting. I've had game meat burgers before, and Yeah, they taste. I just don't like it myself. I mean, that's
Right.
that's just not my thing. That's all. I mean, I live in Wisconsin. A lot of people kill deer out here, and then they turn them into hamburgers and sausage and things like that.
It looks like one thing, tastes like another.
Right, exactly. Especially, it depends. And the thing is, here, well, I'm kind of off the rails here a little bit, but in Wisconsin, if you kill a deer in the lower half of the state, it actually tastes better than the ones in the northern part because they get mostly barked in the wintertime, and the ones in the southern half get more grasses and whatnot. So that actually affects the flavor of the meat. Since this stem cell burger can't eat anything, that's going to affect the taste right there as well.
Right. They might have to mix it with like some fat from an actual animal.
No, that's a possibility. Or they'll just have to make up some stem cell fat.
There
You go.
Dave, your thoughts?
Too expensive.
Yes. Yeah, they're saying it's going to cost about $30 a pound. I mean,
Yeah, if they ramp up
look at it this
production,
way. I was estimating, I don't know how many bites you take of a hamburger, but
If it's-
I was estimating 20 bites per hamburger, right? 20 bites.
okay, roughly.
Sure.
It depends if you're unless you got
Fair
the supersized
estimate.
mouth or
That would be $16,600 per bite. Which is just far too expensive.
Eat it slowly, children. This will be your last meal because Daddy's now in debt.
Let's call that too rich for my blood.
You know, I like the prospect of this, actually. I mean, if you ever watched the TV show Star Trek, I mean, The Next Generation, for example, they have the thing, it basically takes the molecular properties of the item and it transforms it into the meat or whatever. And I think this is a step towards that myself. I mean, this way, if we have the sampling of what it is, who knows, maybe in a few years, maybe we will have the food replicators, you know. Maybe that's
Sure.
a step towards that. And
Or the Jetsons.
well, the Jetsons, yeah. Oh, yeah, just put a little pill down there and put it in there.
Yeah, right.
and-
Or Hitchhiker's Guide.
Yeah, there you go. There's another
I mean,
case.
there are some great ideas out there for food, but seriously, this is far too expensive at this point.
Yeah, at this point. Oh, yeah.
they've-
Well, VCR is
they've
20 years.
developed
Yeah, well, let's look
It's
at VCR.
certainly going to. I mean, we'll improve upon it, and it will become cheaper.
Oh,
But
yeah. Yeah, well, look
at
at
this point, come on.
well, look at something like the VCR, which is now basically obsolete. 20, 30 years ago,
I have
it
VHS
was over $1,000 for a VCR, and now you can buy one for what, $20? You know, you can find out the coins in your couch cushion and afford a VCR if you really wanted one.
Not to mention Betamax. Come on.
Oh yeah, well those are a little bit more rare, but Dave, your thoughts?
Dave Fitzgerald?
Yes, Dave. This Dave.
Other Dave.
The other Dave.
The other day. You
Dave,
know,
we
maybe
got
you should call me
Dave-
Fitz. Would Fitz be easier?
Yes. Okay. I'll just call you
Yeah,
Fitz.
that works.
That works for me.
On the confusion. I'm thinking that what will happen down the line is they'll actually do some genetic tampering with plants, and we'll have meatloaf trees before long.
Hey, I'm just gonna go out and cut off a piece of the meatloaf off the tree.
Absolutely, yeah. I can totally see that happening, actually.
That's great. That would solve all the dinner woes. You know, just go out, make sure. What do you feed it though? I mean, would you just give it water
You
or?
want to know, yeah. Feed me, Seymour.
Where's the neighborhood children? I don't know.
It is scary to think how many people are going to not want to eat that because they don't want to eat something they didn't have to kill. You know.
Right. Yeah. Or it wasn't mooing. I ain't eating it.
Yeah.
So-
It's just not food if it's not dead. You know.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, it's technically it was never alive, so I guess you can't say it's dead. You know, I guess. I don't know. What it depends. I guess what their definition of life is, I suppose.
I suppose.
All right.
We are playing God here.
True. True.
Oh.
And Joe throws out the God card.
Dun dun dun. I can't wait for it to go horribly, horribly wrong.
Here's when the show takes a abrupt turn.
The meatloaf patties are attacking. News at 11. Film at 12.
Planet of the cows.
All right. Well, let's get into. Speaking of crazy things, let's get into our next topic for this evening.
It's the Onion Radio News.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it isn't.
There's a couple of guys out there they're out in the forest. They got lost, and they're calling up the cops. Say, "Hey, I'm lost. Come help me." You know, it's like cops get out there. They find the guy. He says, "So what happened?" Now, this sounds like a joke. This is not a joke. The guy goes, "Oh, I was out looking for ghosts with my bells, and we kind of got separated, and then they got a little suspicious. You know, there's a lot of things that people do out in the woods in the middle of the night, but out looking for ghosts, no.
Let's talk about all of them.
Yes, well, yes, Dave, we'll talk about all of them.
They did have a film crew from the Sci-Fi Network with them, so
Yeah, if they had if they had the films of the Sci-Fi crew, then I could say, yeah, that sounds reasonable, but it was just 3 guys. So the cops said that they got suspicious at this. What was the first clue? I mean, I've heard of people doing stupid things like this all the time. And so I don't know what set off their suspicion, but being a skeptic and an atheist, and I don't believe in ghosts, and we actually talked about that here on the show, that the fact is, you know, if you say you're out looking for ghosts, I automatically think meth lab. No, I don't.
That is the skeptical thing to conclude to.
Yes, it is. It's a far leap, but you just gotta kind of go with it, you know. No.
It's a clear default position.
Absolutely, it's a clear default position. You say ghost, I say meth lab. Let's quibble on this a little bit. No, but that's exactly what happened. They found out the guy was actually out there looking for his friend's meth lab. They pulled up they took his phone and they found out the GPS coordinates, because maybe this goober didn't know how to read GPS coordinates, and frankly, who can? You know, there's a lot of people who can, and obviously these people can't. They go, oh, okay, let's go find out what he was looking for, because it was already marked. So they get out there and they find a pot of meth out there, and they called this thing a one pot shake and bake. So I guess they may have been a one-time deal to do it right out there in the woods.
They were making dirty meth.
Yeah, dirty meth. Yeah, not like the clean meth that, you know, when you make it in your apartment, you know, where it's all
It's
nice
not the
and
pretty
shiny.
blue stuff.
Right.
but
But they were regularly charged for the manufacture of methamphetamine and possession of the methamphetamine or the precursor chemicals. Don't go, if you're going to go make meth, don't tell and you get lost in the woods, don't tell them you're out looking for ghosts. Tell them you're just out lost hiking. It's more plausible. Joe, your thoughts?
Yeah, the haunted woods are a terrible, terrible place to go cook meth.
Yeah.
If you want to cook meth, here's what you got to do. You got to get yourself an old used RV camper, and you go out in the desert, and you do that until you meet the guy that owns the chain of fried chicken restaurants.
I saw this on TV.
Yes, this is the proper way. If you want to fill up a storage locker full of money, this is how you cook meth.
You mean it's the owner of Chick-fil-A, right? No, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding.
secret sauce.
The secret sauce, yeah.
But seriously, like, what a bunch of idiots.
Right.
I mean, as you mentioned, this guy got lost in the woods doing something illegal. So what does he do? He calls the cops to come rescue him. Mm-hmm. And when they show up, he doesn't even stick to his story. Like, it's a bad story, but he could have at least just insisted, like, no, really, that's what we were doing. Yeah. And you can't tell me otherwise. Yeah. Like, but then he's like, well, all right, we were cooking meth. It's like, oh, okay, you were committing a federal crime.
Right. I want that guy in my gang. He gives it up right away. Dumbass.
He could have said he was hiking.
I was out hiking. I kind of got lost, and you know, but I was
he probably had like some indicator on his physical appearance. I mean, these guys
Joe,
look like they were cracked.
High on meth.
Yeah, the mugshots, they all look cracked out. Like he probably had like meth mouth. You know, his teeth were all rotten. He's just sitting there like chewing on his tongue, like, well, we were hunting ghosts.
We didn't be
the cops look at each other, just like, yeah, that's what they were doing, all right.
Oh, this is just ripe for a TV parody. I want to see, you know, there's a TV show out there right now called Under the Dome. They should introduce these 3 characters and put this story right in there. They're out making meth in the middle of the... Never mind. Dave, your thoughts?
With those silly meth heads. I was just thinking that they probably were spotted right from the get-go, just from the look of them, because the adorable thing about meth is once you start using it, it's like Dorian Gray in reverse. I mean, you just become the crypt keeper in 6 months. It's horrifyingly scary, really.
Yeah, it really is. Actually, I meant the other Dave, but that's okay.
Oh, sorry, Dave.
No, you guys know. Keep going. You talk to me afterwards.
All right, we'll talk to Dave 1, and you're Dave 2.
No, just do the "you're damned" thing or something. Or,
okay, you're damned.
I don't know.
I'll just call you "you're damned." All right, there we go. I'll
Good.
make it easy on everybody. I've never had 2 Daves on here. Hey, this is my brother Dave, and my other brother Dave.
These are the Daves I know. These are the Daves I know.
Dr. Stutes poem, "The Too Many Daves."
Yeah.
Too many Daves.
Too many Daves, not enough Packard.
That was in my first album. Yeah.
Yeah.
My new book. Anyway, all right, you're damned. Your thoughts?
Wait, are you gonna fish him or?
Oh, Dave. I'm sorry, Dave.
Oh no, I'm good. I'm good. Go for it, other Dave.
Other Dave.
Okay, other Dave. Okay, so what this story made me do, because this is how my brain functions, it made me Google "shake and bake 1-pot meth labs."
Oh, jeez. And the FBI were knocking on your door 10 minutes later.
Well, if they knock on my door, you'll know about it. I'll have to take a hall pass.
Okay. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, don't worry about it. It doesn't involve you.
Okay, so anyhow, yeah, shake and bake 1-pot meth labs are apparently the new thing in methamphetamines.
Really?
If you know.
I'm sorry. I'm totally out of the meth club lately. I mean, I'm just not getting my chemicals in lately. I mean, I'm not getting my email from that anyway.
Oh, Packard, I'm just new into the game here. I just started picking this stuff up.
This ain't your daddy's meth lab. No way.
No way.
Not your days, meth lab. Mm.
Clearly, Packard needs better Smurfs.
Apparently,
Yes.
there's this like dirty little way to make meth that you can put it into 2 liters and like shake this stuff up. You don't need as much pseudoephedrine, which is the main. That's what everyone's sneaking into, like the pharmacy to steal.
All right. They regulate that stuff
Oh,
pretty
yeah.
heavily. If you want to get something, you got to fill out a name and everything like that. Yeah.
According to what I'm reading, they say that people just rotate and go back and forth and get it in rotations, and it kind of circumvents the whole thing.
Yeah, it is kind of pointless at that point, because then they go, "Here, buddy, I'll give you $20. Go and buy me some of this."
Yeah, especially when you're making it in your car.
Right.
It's not like a lab anymore. It's in your car in a 2-liter.
Right.
By the way, I just have to throw in, when I looked up shake and bake 1-pot meth labs,
You came across the shake and bake for the chicken recipe, right?
No, but the end of this article says the Clinton County Sheriff's Department warns that shake and bake meth labs can be found anywhere. They've been found in parks, cars, homes, and hotels.
Really?
If you come across one, you should call 911.
Wow. I didn't know that these things were that prevalent. I guess this is a bigger problem than I thought they were. But
Scary.
Apparently.
yeah. Did anybody else have anything else or a commentary on this?
No, we got to spin on. This is way too depressing.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Thanks, you're damned. You just brought the whole thing down. No. No, that's all right. But at least they were arrested. That's the bonus part of this.
There we go.
They were arrested.
I'll refrain from my opinion from now on, Packard.
That's why we have you on the show, Dave.
So how quickly can you start your meth production? Because I think I can make it out to Michigan in time to...
There you
All right,
go.
we'll talk after the show.
Are we gonna... I think it's as fast as you can shake a 2-liter.
And we all know what happens there. You take off the lid, everywhere, But anyway. All right, well, let's get on to... Now we've shaken the shit out of this. Let's get on to our next topic for this evening.
They got paid for their sound bites and sold their TV movie rights.
Have you had fatigue, tired of something going off all the time, like car alarms? You hear a car alarm, you go and say, "Hey, stop doing that." No, you pretty much ignore it. Nowadays, car alarms are everywhere, and nobody pays attention to them because of the fatigue of just having them around. Now there's the Amber Alert, which has, and that's a good idea. It came out because of the child that had died back in 1996, and they're sending out these alerts to people's cell phones. The problem here is the cell phone companies have not told them how to shut these off. People are getting woke up in the middle of the night, 2 o'clock in the morning, for something that's 200 or 300 miles away, and I'm an early bird. I get up for my work. I get up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning anyway. But the thing is, a lot of other people don't. They get to sleep in, and I envy the fuck out of them. But these are Amber Alerts. I mean, while it's a good thing, it's just poorly implemented, I should say.
Yeah.
And people out there, there's kids out there that are missing, and that is a terrible thing. But the fact is that these need to be whittled down a little bit better, and the implementation on this needs to be fixed. Joe, your thoughts?
I had an Amber Alert go off on my phone for the first time not too long ago. Mm-hmm. And like the people in this article, I was kind of surprised. I was like, what the heck is that noise? And when I figured out what was going on, I was like, oh, and I thought, well, that's kind of cool that it does that because it, something new for the phone. It also does it now for when there's going to be bad weather in the area. Mm-hmm. And so I get like little weather alerts. And when it comes up, it says like, hit this for dismiss or hit this for settings. So I assume I could turn it off, but I kind of like that it does that, so I'm not going to turn it off. Right. But I might change my mind on that if it starts going off like this article describes.
Now that's on an Android phone. I mean, I have to deal with an Android phone for my work, and those things are just a mess as far as the operating system is concerned.
Oh, I don't understand Android phones.
Yeah, you got iOS 6, right?
Yes, okay. I have an iPhone.
Yeah, you have an iPhone 6, or iPhone iOS 6 rather. And that is a new setting in that operating system where you can go in and change the settings in there. Now you mentioned the thing about weather. Now I have weather apps on there, and I can disable them or put them on.
Oh yeah, this isn't an app though. This is from the actual like weather service. Will send out like I'll get okay. Like if there's going to be like a flash flood warning or something, it'll send me. It looks like the Amber Alerts. It's
really so it's built right into the operating system.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh okay, I see.
Crystal in the chat room says. NOAH. That's right. That's where it comes from. So
yeah, it's from NOAA. Yeah,
but
National Organization of
Oceanographic and Air.
Yeah, Oceanographic. Yeah, Oceanographic.
That's why I said the letters. I don't know what they mean. Yeah. So
we're up on our technology out here at the show, especially our anagrams.
This article describes the Amber Alerts though going off 12 times a night after 2 a.m. And that's just crazy. And one of the people that was quoted in the article also said that they received an Amber Alert at 3 a.m. for something that happened 3 hours drive away from them.
Right.
So like, what kind of help would they be?
Right.
So I can completely understand the frustration that these people are having with I mean, that's just nuts going off that much.
Right. And we were actually we have our weekly meetings, and one of our meetings there. When we were talking about this story, that I think it was Practical Magic, she said that somebody who they were having a dispute over child custody, and she said that they were going to take and call the police and say, put out an Amber Alert, even though they knew where the child was. And this would basically be an abuse of that system.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
You're damned. Your thoughts?
This whole system is it's a good idea. I mean, ideally, we should have something like this in place that. I mean, but didn't we have milk cartons in the past?
Yeah, well, yeah, but who ever looks at those things? I mean, really?
Well, right. Who looks at milk cartons? Who looks at their phone when they get that notification? The last time I live in Detroit. On my Facebook page, people that I know will post, like, missing persons things all the time on Facebook.
Oh, yeah, I see those too.
But I don't get them on my phone. And the last time that I did was when I was down in Florida in March. I was visiting my family down there, and my phone was blowing up with Amber Alerts.
Wow.
I've not gotten one since I've been back to Michigan, though.
Well, I guess down in Florida, there's just a mess of people just getting taken and kidnapped down there.
I find that to be unbelievable. I feel as though I live in Detroit, man. Like, more people are probably being kidnapped from here.
Yeah, they're just being killed out there. They don't bother kidnapped. They're just fucking knocking them off.
Now that's a generalization, Packard.
That almost never happens.
That almost never happens. No, not on this show. No, I'm just kidding, Dave.
But they end up on Belle Isle.
Wearing cement galoshes.
Yeah, but seriously, this is a desensitizing thing, and certainly on Facebook, with the amount of notifications I see and the amount of people that I see posting over and over again these missing children. When I was down in Florida in March and I got that notification on my phone, it took me 3 days to get rid of it, and I tried. Yeah. And it's not that I don't care for the child that was kidnapped; it's that I have no control over what happens to them, and I want notification off of my phone.
Right.
And I couldn't.
Right. And, to me, there's an old joke that, they like, there's this old TV show, America's Most Wanted. I don't even know if it's in production anymore, but there was a guy who said, they put out these stories about these people getting abducted or kidnapped or this major crime, and the guy said that...
I believe it's still on.
What's that? Is it
I
still
believe
on?
that show is still on.
Oh, is it still on? Okay. But he said that basically, hey, if this criminal is not between my couch and the refrigerator, he's pretty much a free man at this point. So,
yeah.
And this is pretty much the mentality that's going on with all these alerts. I mean, yeah, I feel bad, that these people are getting
It's a shame because there are thousands upon thousands of people who are being kidnapped every single day in the United States.
Exactly. And
we're getting these individual, essentially text messages or notifications on our phone that tell us about one or two of them. And it's good for those one or two of them, but it also ignores all of the people who never get any kind of support whatsoever.
Right. The fact that there's people out there that they do need this help, and I can completely understand that. But it gets to be a bit much. I mean, before too long, what will be the point of having it if no one is going to even pay attention to this thing anymore? I mean, really? I mean, yeah, you'll get one or two people that are going to go, oh, they'll really get into it, and they want to help out, and maybe those ones will be the few. But overall, does it really matter? Dave, your thoughts?
Dave Fitz?
Dave Fitz, your thoughts?
Dave Fitz.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I should say, if you have an iPhone, you can go into settings and turn that puppy off, which is what I did the first time it went off in the middle of the night for me. I do keep the emergency weather one on because we're in the tsunami zone. We're right near Ocean Beach. But if they could, like you said, it's a great idea in theory, but the way it's being implemented is all wrong. And if they could localize it, if it wasn't so obtrusive, if it was something a little more well executed, it's like so many things in the world. Right. Great idea, not quite the best execution. Yeah. And as far as car alarms go, I think we just outlaw them now and still have to use them. So I hear that damn calliope of car alarm anymore. It just instantly triggers a part of my brain where I just want to take a sledgehammer to the car.
The only time a car alarm is worth anything is when it's in a movie and there's a giant monster setting down a foot and setting off all the car alarms at one time. Then that's great. Because
that is awesome, yes.
Only use car alarms in movies! So... I pine for those days. But, I think...
It must all be destroyed.
Yes. But, yeah, if you can change the settings on your phone. But the problem, I think, is also that the cell companies are not telling the customers how they can shut it off. Many people don't even know that they can. So
yeah, it's a problem.
Yes, it is.
You know what's annoying about car alarms? Is when you go to a fireworks display, the fireworks set off the car alarms.
Oh, yeah.
And people standing next to their car set their car alarms over and over again, thinking like, "Oh, somebody might steal the car right out from next to me." So
when has anybody ever looked out the window when they hear a car alarm anymore? It's like,
right?
They have not stopped a crime in years.
Yeah, that's about it too.
I pulled the fuse to my car alarm. Don't tell anyone.
Stealing your car, Dave.
It'll just be our secret, Dave.
It's true.
They just need a car alarm that inflates a Doberman Pinscher and sends it after the car.
You need chitty chitty bang bang.
Exactly.
The car float away.
The would-be assailant. Yeah.
See, but then people come on. My car's gone. Oh no, there it is. It floats right back down.
Well, honestly, we're going to have robot cars before we know it, so who knows what kind of security things they're going to have in place.
Oh, yeah.
They'll probably drive them to the police station themselves and hand it over Knight Rider style.
Yeah, my car's been stolen. Hit that button. Oh, I can't drive the car no more. I guess we're going to the police.
I'd watch that show.
Right. Exactly. And what smart criminal wouldn't be able to shut off a car alarm? I mean...
Yeah, exactly. exactly. That's day one stuff.
Yeah. That's
I
criminal 101.
cannot wait for the day that I'm a used robot car salesman.
Now they're totally going off the rails there. So anyway, speaking of going off the rails and putting the alarms on this, let's get into our next topic for this evening.
Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy? Caught in a landslide, no escape from reality.
It's just a theory. Really? Just a theory. The evolution's just a theory. How many times have you heard this? I hear this in many arguments that I've had with theists, that they think that theory means, guess. They just pulled it out of their ass. No, it doesn't mean that at all, people. We've got to put this to bed. For you theists out there that are watching the show, and I know you do because you thumb down the video just because the fact is you don't like us talking mean about you. But anyway, and we're really not. There are differences between theory and hypothesis. The Bible is not a theory. It's not even fact. It's a hypothesis.
It's barely even a hypothesis.
Exactly. It's barely even a hypothesis.
It's a failed hypothesis.
A failed
Thank
one.
you.
Yes. It's barely a hypothesis and a failed one at that. So please don't trot out the Bible and say this is fact. No, it's not. It's your belief, and beliefs don't mean shit unless it's been proven, and then you might have something to go with. But anyway, the fact is that a hypothesis or theory. In theory, if you're talking in general terms, hey, I have a theory that guy is going to go over there and kiss that woman, then, you're basing it on some previous activities. This is general theory. It's redneck theory, I like to call it, because it doesn't mean anything. You might as well say he's going to go over there. I have a guess he's going to go over there. Then in that case, then those two words apply. But in the scientific terms, a theory does not mean guess, people. It's never meant guess. They take a bunch of facts that have been proven and hypotheses that have been proven, and then they turn that into a solid working theory. And if you don't think that theory is real, gravity is also just a theory. It's not a fact because it's called gravity theory. If you don't think gravity is a theory, don't jump out a window. We're going to start the time, and time is right here. There it is. And Dave Fitzgerald, you're going to go first, and the time starts now.
Groovy. Well, first of all, the whole thing is they love to say, it's the law of gravity, the law, as if calling it a law makes it real and calling it a theory of evolution makes it some kind of crazy half-assed guess.
Right.
These are just words, people. These are just words.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that Christians can be such tough, hard-nosed skeptics when it comes to evolution and when it comes to, Jesus myth theory or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, if you ask them how it all began, clearly it was a talking snake in the Garden of Eden,
And a talking donkey and
a talking donkey and zombies came out of Jerusalem and wandered through Jerusalem. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so absurd. I mean, and it's not. Gravity's never been a law. I mean, you can't get pulled over by it.
Yeah.
You're going too fast for gravity. I'm gonna write you a ticket now. Did you have anything else you wanted to add on that?
No, I mean, if you're that stupid already, there's no use in talking to me any further.
Good idea. All right, Dave, your thoughts. Or your thoughts.
Okay. Dave? Me?
Yeah,
Dave?
you, Dave. Yeah.
Hey, me, Dave.
Yeah.
Other Dave.
Yeah, the other Dave.
I beat my chest and assert my power. So anyhow, so gravity is both a theory and a law.
Is it now?
Ooh, checkmate.
Oh, shit. Yeah. So it is both a theory and a law, and theories and laws explain different things. Mm-hmm. I mean, truly, theories explain kind of how something works, or rather why something works, I suppose.
All right.
Well, a law explains how, normally laws have mathematical formulas that go along with them.
Right. A law is basically a logical relationship between two or more things that are based on a variety of facts that are proven, a proven hypothesis.
Yeah, if you want to be all fucking educated and stuff.
I put my fancy hat on.
Hey, you know what? It occurred to me as you were saying that, Other Dave, that if scientists tried to call it suddenly the law of evolution, Christians would freak out. They would actually go to their congressman and make it illegal to call it that.
Yeah,
they would, and it's funny because that wouldn't be what a law really meant, right?
Exactly.
Like,
but they would be out there with their sign saying, "I deny basic tenets of science and I vote." You know, that's what they would do.
Right? No, I agree. That's poignant.
Yeah, the fact that some of these people, the people that are out there that don't believe in evolution. I mean, I don't believe it. I don't believe evolution. There's facts to back it up. I don't need to believe it. It's facts.
I don't believe in germs because germs are just a theory.
There is germ theory. That's what I'm saying. Is I don't have to believe it. There's
theory,
facts.
Exactly. It's germ theory.
Right. But I'm saying
I'm
just saying there are facts behind the germ theory, and facts behind evolution. I don't have to believe it because
so can we also and I'm a little disappointed, Other David.
Yep.
Only because you're a historian, and I want to talk to you about evidence, and I want to talk to you about theories.
We'll be talking.
We'll be talking about that.
All right,
that's coming later in the show.
Later, but I want to talk about a null voice versus a alternative hypothesis.
Oh, you're
because if this is a conversation about hypothesis versus theory, then we should certainly talk about null versus an alternative hypothesis.
You got it.
Right.
Okay.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned for
that. That's coming up later.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Joey, your thoughts?
Well, based on what some theists have told me on Twitter, a hypothesis is a word that. Did I say it wrong? Hypothesis?
No, that's hippopotamus.
I just love that you said based upon what some theists had said on.
I can't wait how this is going to end.
Oh, let's go on that.
Well, a hypothesis is a confusing word that I've only kind of heard and I have no idea what it means. And a theory is just some whimsical idea where people make shit up and
crazy scientists believe it. You know?
Crazy scientists.
And then crazy scientists walk around and say it's true. But yeah, I mean, you know, a hypothesis is, what is kind of like the crazy idea. It's like, well, maybe it's because of this, and it's kind of based on observation, and it has to be tested. And then the theory is where it has been tested, and it's been tested repeatedly, and it's more overly accepted as fact now because it's been demonstrated that this is true. It's a set of facts. So.
But scientists could just change their mind tomorrow and it'd all go away. So,
well, with new evidence, science will change its mind.
Yep,
so.
and I
love
that.
The Bible will never change.
I've heard that argument too, and it's
the
like
Bible got its changing done in the beginning.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, they didn't take off the old diaper yet.
The Bible doesn't change its stone.
It was written with the finger of God.
Then when they say that, I said, well, then it's a dead document. If it doesn't change, it's dead. So
exactly, they act like the fact that science changes its mind is a weakness when in fact it's its greatest strength.
Yes, it is.
I agree. Yeah,
I have some old Jehovah's Witness literature that points out to scientific frauds like the faked human fossils, and it says, because sometimes people have faked scientific discoveries, that means science is discredited. It's what?
It's like no one's ever faked the fact that they found the Noah's Ark before.
And you know what? You know who discovered it was fake?
Only about
other scientists doing science.
Right. My daughter wants to get in here in the last couple seconds.
I remember learning this about theories and stuff about this in high school, which I still am in. But no one can really have a theory. They can only have a hypothesis. And a theory is an explanation as to why something happens, and a law is a description of something, why something happens. That's what I remember it being.
And it's well established by repeat observation and such.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
scientific method.
Yeah, and the scientific method, it's not the best thing we have, but it's the best. It's not the only thing we have, but I mean,
it's the best thing we have.
Right, it's the best thing we have.
What did Einstein say? It said something like, compared to reality, our science is childlike and primitive, and yet it's the most precious thing we have.
Right, exactly.
Couldn't say it better myself.
Exactly. All right, and that is our time.
Yeah.
It was a great discussion, and I think hopefully somebody out there that's, stumbles across this later on and says, "Oh, it's only a theory." Hey, it's not just a theory. There's facts behind it. So anyway, all right.
I really hope that changes someone's mind.
I hope so.
Anyone.
Anybody.
Seriously, man. That's. I want that to make a difference.
Yes, and I hope so too. I mean, I really hope it does at least clarify it to some degree. I mean, I may not be the most eloquent on that, but hey, it's a lot better than what some of the funnies out there are saying. All right, let's get on to our next topic for this evening. Our funny tweets tonight.
Can I just say I love your segues? Those are the best ever.
Thank you. Our funny tweet tonight comes from the Tweet of God. He says, "I need to be constantly told how great I am because I'm very insecure in my omnipresence."
Omni-impotence? Is that what you're saying?
Omni-impotence, yeah. He's omni-impotent. Yeah, I can't say it. But yeah, that is very funny. I mean, I have that same question. Why does everybody have to keep telling us how great God is? I mean, if he knows, if God was real, he would already know how great he is, right? So why would we have to fucking tell him, I know I'm great and no one tells me. No one has to remind me of it. Hey,
one has to tell you. That's the beauty of it.
That's right.
Watch your language, because fucking words are magic.
Yes,
and
they
people
are.
going to be upset.
All right, well, let's get on to our next topic for this evening.
Hey, you guys!
Our shout out tonight comes from Joe. And Joe's shout out is for Poochalot. That's Poochalot. Joe, can you tell us a little bit about Poochalot?
Yes, Poochalot's name is Josie, Jossi, and in their profile they say, "I don't tolerate stupidity, right-wing nut jobs will be blocked, happy atheists," and they have an alternative account which is available. Poochalot is a fun follow. They retweet a lot of atheist tweets. They're an active member of the atheist community, and I think that Poochalot should be shouted out.
Yes.
On Packard Pokes At.
Yes.
Follow Poochalot. Go on Twitter and follow them.
Yes, and if you're not on Twitter, why aren't you on Twitter right now? Why aren't you on Twitter?
I have to agree. Poochalot is sweet and has retweeted me a lot, and
yes.
I have to think that.
There you go.
Yes.
I smell love there, Dave.
Oh
no, dude! I have to love them as well. They're worthy of the love.
Yes, they are.
Let's sweep them out.
Smooch the pooch.
Smooch the Poochalot.
Smooch the pooch.
If it's within your means, consider adopting the Poochalot and bringing Poochalot home and making it part of your family.
Sounds like a Pokemon, doesn't it?
It does.
What's up with you, Poochalot?
Gotta catch them all. If you're not on Twitter, why aren't you? Just give Poochalot a follow. That's Poochalot, and give them a shout out and let them know that you heard them here on the show. All right, let's get into our next topic for this evening. Our special guest tonight is Dave Fitzgerald, the author of Nailed, and he has a new book. I think it's called Mormon something. What is it called there?
Something.
Mormon something?
It's the first book in a series called The Complete Heretic's Guide to Western Religion.
Oh, cool.
And book one is The Mormons.
Yes. I have some general questions I like to ask.
Those are very kind.
Okay. Were you ever religious, and how did you come to your non-belief?
Oh, that is a great question. Yeah, I was super religious all through my impressionable youth, up until I was junior college age, around 19 or 20 or so. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of an interesting deconversion story. I used to flirt with this girl by having theological arguments with her. And so...
yeah, that's the way I always pick up women.
You know? Hey, yeah. Moving to this...
Hey, what do you think about the movement of the scriptures, huh?
Well, the funny thing was, I mean, we do this all the time, and one day we're going at it, and she goes, "Well, Dave, you know the Hindu religion is like 3,000 years older than Christianity," and I was all set to jump down her ass and go, "No, it's not, blah, blah, blah." And I stopped, and before a word even came out of my mouth, I realized, you know, I have no idea if Christianity is older than Hinduism or vice versa.
Really? That's kind of crazy.
And that, at the time, and at that moment, that millisecond of, oh my God, I was just about to say something I didn't even know was true. I'm just like the Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses. You've seen that Talking Heads song with David Byrne going, you know, am I right or am I wrong? My God, what have I done? It was like I had a little David Byrne singing that song on my shoulder.
I know that song, yeah.
It was so funny from that millisecond on. I mean, I didn't even finish the sentence. That was the end of the debate. It was like, boom. From that moment on, I was no longer a Christian. It was just that fast. It's like, wow.
You got hit with the lightning bolt of atheism.
Literally, yeah. It felt that quick because all of a sudden, it never even crossed my mind to question my religion before. And as soon as I did, the second I did, it was like, wow, this is so obviously fake. You know, it's so patently fake. I mean, evolution, I was such a creationist for so long, and all of a sudden, boom, it's like, of course evolution is true. Of course it's true.
Yes.
It's massively, confirmed by the evidence. So it was a very weird thing. Yeah, so in a short answer, yes, I was raised religious for a long time.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, I think I've been an atheist now longer than I ever was a Christian then.
Well, we're glad to have you on this side of the team there, Dave.
Me too. If you guys have ever read the book Name of the Rose, there's a scene where Brother William is talking to this guy from the Inquisition. The guy from the Inquisition is saying, yes, Brother William used to be my staunch ally in the war between good and evil. And he says, yes, but then I went over to the other side. And that's how I feel.
Well, we have cookies, you know.
Yeah, you do.
Packard doesn't deliver, though.
No, I don't deliver. It depends. It depends on where you're at.
I'm still waiting for my pineapple.
He mocks us with cookies. It's,
It's very sad.
This is true.
My next question here is, what did you do? Do you just do this? Do you just go and do lectures for your?
Yeah. For the last 5 years or so, my primary job has been author and public speaker.
Oh.
I've been, of course, to do that. I've had a bunch of series of day jobs to prop that up. But right now, I just started as the regional campus organizer for Secular Student Alliance for all of California and Nevada.
Oh,
so
cool.
that's become my official #1 day job, which is kind of awesome to have and have it be in the movement.
Yeah, I've been trying to get a Secular Students Alliance in my daughter's school, but I don't know if they're going to be able to get one in there or not. But
well, let's talk after the show because I can definitely help you out with that.
Oh, excellent.
And I honestly, even if they weren't paying me, I told them this at the interview. It says, look, you've got me whether I do this job or not because I love the friggin' Secular Student Alliance.
There you go. There you go.
They're the organization that gives me the most hope for the future because those guys
after my own heart.
Yeah, there you go.
No, seriously, that's awesome.
All right. I'm going to turn the questions over to Joe. Joe, do you have any questions for David Fitzgerald?
Yes, David. As we talked before the show, I have your book nailed. I did read it. I watched your Skepticon 3 presentation on YouTube, and that got me totally turned on to getting the book, and I devoured the book. And it seems like that speech was given in 2010. It seems like 2012 was the year of the Jesus mythicism. Like everybody was talking about it that year. I think Bart Ehrman came out with a new book about it.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Richard Carrierson's came out with a book about it.
Yeah,
all the podcasts
Richard Carrier, he's my main man. I mean, I adore that guy. And for that matter, I adore Bart Ehrman too. It's just that last book of his was such a disappointment. It was so horrible. Yeah. It was just phoned in.
The best criticism go ahead.
I wanted to back up a little bit just for the sake of the audience. The book nailed is about the subtitle of it is 10 Christian myths that show Jesus never existed at all. And I mean that in a non-hyperbole way at all. I'm not being sensationalist. I really sincerely don't think there was even a guy named Jesus anymore. And if I had a nickel for everyone who said, well, I know he wasn't the Son of God, but I'm sure there was a guy named Jesus. It's like, no, I don't even think there was a guy named Jesus. I think things would look very differently in early Christianity and in the Christian scriptures and in just the way history's come out if there had even been just a dude named Jesus.
I always ask Christians, I say, okay, so where's the book of Jesus? And why didn't he write anything? I mean, where's and just, Paul wrote. It's like, no, those are Paul's words. Those are not Jesus's words.
Paul never talks about Jesus wandering around or having disciples. He never even uses the word disciples.
Right.
You know.
And he got a lot of the stuff on there wrong. He left out stuff that the other Gospels had apparently covered at one point. And
you got to remember, the Gospels were written long after Paul. After Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In fact, it's the difference between the Jesus of like Paul and earlier Christians, that generation, and the generation of Christians after the Gospels came out. It sounds like they're talking about completely different animals, and I think they are, in fact.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's just how they've gone and done all that stuff. Did you have any other questions, Dave?
It's Joe, and
Joe,
yes,
sorry.
I do.
Okay, sorry.
I didn't even get to ask a question yet.
Sorry about that. Go.
So, Dave, in your Skepticon 3 presentation, you talked about how there were many Jesus cults and mystery cults, and that what we now know as Jesus likely arose out of a commingling of those beliefs, if I understand what you were talking about correctly.
Not so much a commingling, but what it seems like is the further we go back and look at early Christianity, the more bifurcated it is, the more heterogeneous it is. It doesn't seem to like start at the cross and then snowball down Golgotha and spread out in a shockwave like that. It seemed to have popped up in Alexandria, in Syria, in Greece, in Rome, and it seems to have started in pockets of like Jewish intellectuals who were looking through the Hebrew Scriptures, especially the Greek translation of the Hebrew Scriptures, and looking for hidden messages about the Messiah. And in a nutshell, I think that Christianity, as we know it, started out as an attempt to make a Jewish version of these personal savior mystery faiths that were so popular around the 1st century BC and the 1st century.
Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's super interesting, because what I was leading into, my question was going to be, what do you think set off all these Jesus cults? And I think you just answered that question perfectly.
Yeah, I was listening, when I listened to your topic at Skepticon 3 there, you said there may have been several different Jesuses out there floating around, they made an amalgamation of these other ones all put together, and they kind of like, let's take the best of these guys and this guy and this guy and kind of throw them all together.
Yeah, and in fact, it's when you see the writings, and you see this in other ancient religions as well, you see that they took like the best of what anybody was saying at the time and attributed it to Jesus. Just like in the Old Testament, they took all these tribal stories and attributed them all to Moses, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a great example in the Nag Hammadi Gospels, which were a cache of Gospels that were hidden away around the year 300 or 400 or so. There's a book called the Wisdom of Jesus Christ, the Sophia of Jesus Christ. But the great thing about it is it's only half finished. There's also a book called The Blessings of Eustanos. And what's happened is that Eustanos is a pagan text where this pagan philosopher is giving this, pagan spout. And somebody is taking everything he and his disciples said and turning it into a story about Jesus, and having Matthew ask Jesus or Peter ask Jesus these same questions. It's a total smoking gun on how they took a purely pagan document that had nothing to do with Jesus and turning it into a Jesus gospel.
Wow.
Or Jesus Book of Acts, yeah. And we've got it crystallized right there in midstream. It's amazing. And
that is amazing.
Yeah. One of the things that really blew me away when I first started, and I got to start out by saying, actually, 15 years ago, it never even crossed my mind that there was no Jesus. That just seemed like a ridiculous notion. Mm-hmm. Never even. Yep. It wasn't until I read a book called Kin's Guide to the Bible and was laughing about how he was able to pull out these different versions of Jesus, how there was like commie Jesus and tubby Jesus, And it made me curious to know, well, what do we know about the real Jesus and what he really said and really did, and how much was just legendary bullshit that accreted later? And it's when you start looking for the historical evidence for Jesus, that's when you start getting in trouble, because as soon as you start pulling the thread from that sweater, next thing you know, you've got no sweater at all.
That's
right.
Yeah.
Our sources for Jesus aren't just problematic. I mean, they all boil down to the 4 Gospels, and our 4 Gospels all boil down to the first Gospel, Mark's Gospel, which seems to be an allegory all along.
Yeah.
And I get the impression from reading it that he expected his more tuned-in readers to know exactly that that's what it was and that's what he was saying. In fact, in Mark 4:11, he basically says, he has Jesus say, I'm giving you the mystery of the kingdom of heaven, I'm going to teach you in silence and in parables, in hidden away, so that you'll know the truth. But other people, they'll hear but not understand. Otherwise, they turn from their sins and be saved.
Well,
now that's a crazy ass thing for our Jesus to say.
Yeah, that doesn't make any
perfect
sense.
sense.
Why would
if he's a mystery Messiah?
Right. I was gonna say, why would you say, they'll know, but they won't understand? Well, that fucking doesn't make any sense. It's like
none whatsoever.
Yeah, like you'll know that's water, but you won't understand how it works.
Yeah. Because we don't want those guys to turn from their sins and go to heaven.
Right. We keep those fuckers out.
Fuck those losers. Yeah. It's like, fucker Jesus. Yeah, you don't hear that but in Sunday school very much, Yeah,
we don't hear about that one. Screw those other guys. We're getting ours and fuck them.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny to see the differences just within the Gospels themselves. And again, all our sources for Jesus, they boil down to the Gospels. There's really, if you go through the whole first century, I argue in the book, there's really nothing we have apart from two disputed lines in Josephus, which I say one is a forgery and one is an interpolation, with no hesitation at all.
Yeah, but I saw that. I was going to say, I heard this about the argument from the Christians. They're saying, well, there's the Josephus and the other one, whoever he is. They always say that these prove Jesus. Like, no, these are gerrymandered, and these things are mixed, added on later on.
Yeah,
I have a question about
even if those things were true and authentic, and it really was saying what he said, and they're not. There's no argument they're forgery. At least how much of a forgery is the only argument. But even if they were true, they still wouldn't be a witness because those were written at the end of the first century. We don't have a single solitary witness from the time of Jesus' alleged life, even though we've got pages and pages of people who were on the scene, who would have been interested in Jesus. And we have all these other loser messiahs who did make the historical record around the same time.
Right.
But the real Jesus doesn't. The real guy who did all these miracles didn't. It's craziness.
Yeah, exactly. Joe, did you have any other questions?
Oh, yeah. In your Skepticon 3 talk, you mentioned Josephus, and you talked about that a little bit, and you said that the church father Origen, he complained that Josephus didn't mention Jesus.
Exactly.
But then Eusebius inherited his copy from Origen.
And then all of a sudden from the same guy who said, sure, Jesus did these wonderful things, but what source do we have for them except the Gospels? Well, you've got your own book that in the year 300 or so, Eusebius is going to start quoting all over the place, but you apparently never noticed it. So, and we've got like 17 or 18 early church fathers who went over Josephus extensively in their comments, looking for historical documentation of other things in the Gospels, like John the Baptist. And yet, there's no mention of what would have been a total smoking, ace in the hole for them.
Right.
It's such a forgery, and it's a bad forgery. It's like, I spent a whole chapter just demolishing the idea that could have even been a real thing.
They might as well just put in there, Jesus real, and here's his phone number.
And I love him, and he's super awesome, and he's great, and
and I'm leaving him, and all this other horse hockey.
Yes. It's ridiculous. And when they try to say, well, it was only partially forged. Well, the fact that it's been tampered with at all, that's a huge hint and a half already that you can't trust it. But the fact is, the whole thing is a forgery, and as I say, I just beat a dead horse through that whole chapter, explaining why it is and not just a partial forgery.
Exactly.
You mentioned that Eusebius is probably the person that created the forgery. Like, he was known to alter other documents.
Oh, yeah.
And he was the first person to start quoting it, and he got his copy from Origen. So I was wondering, like, is that a recent revelation? Like, did anyone else notice? Like, hey, wait a minute, my copy of Josephus doesn't say what you're quoting? Like, has anyone, to your knowledge, throughout Christian history, like, been like, hey, wait a minute? Or is it always been like, kind of like, well, hey, this works, let's keep it?
Yeah, well, there was no motivation for most people to question it, around when Eusebius started quoting it originally, but that was 300 years after Josephus wrote it. So there's a huge hole in history where people would have noticed it. and not much of an opportunity for them to fact check it.
Yeah, 300 years
even
had
if they
passed.
suspected it in the first place.
Yeah, 300 years had passed. Not like a whole lot of people, the original writers of the book, are going to be stick around and say, "Hey, you stole my copyright. You're
exactly."
you're
and that's another thing.
copying my
The
book."
argument we hear from Christians is like, "Oh no, the Gospels have to be true because otherwise the eyewitnesses would say, no, you got it wrong." It's like, we don't have any evidence at all that anybody was even interested in fact checking, even if they could.
Right.
And if they did, all the critiques we have of early Christianity were lost. So maybe they did do that, but the monks didn't keep them.
Yeah,
so many arguments against early Christianity, from like the 2nd century and 3rd century, and we only know about them because they kept the books that quoted them to rebut them.
Yeah, and the thing is, their eyewitnesses are hundreds of years after the fact.
Absolutely.
So
and I can't
that way
emphasize
you wouldn't
that
get
enough.
that through court. There's no way. It's like that's
Absolutely.
third party. That's third party hearsay at this point.
Absolutely. And I spent a whole chapter arguing that people say, "Oh, well, the Gospels were written by eyewitnesses." No, they weren't. First of all, they never say they are. Secondly, they're clearly written in third person. Third, they all contain giveaways that they're writing generations after the fact, and these are the stories handed down to them. And they're all based off each other. The synoptic problem is a huge problem for anyone who wants to say that we have independent witnesses for Jesus, because they all stem back to Mark.
Right.
And that's just the 4 that made the cut. We've got, 35 or so other Gospels and Acts and epistles that
Never
didn't
made
make the cut
Yeah.
from the 2nd century. The 2nd century is full of Gospels and Acts like that.
Yeah, I think the whole book is just total trash anyway. But that's just my opinion, though. But the things that they say in there are just goddamn ridiculous to begin with.
It is ridiculous.
All right, we're gonna get. Did you have?
Packard,
yes.
Yeah, I have a couple quick follow-up questions.
Oh, dude.
Not so much the nerdy stuff, but David, a while ago I got to go visit a museum in New York that had a display of the Dead Sea Scrolls. And I was wondering, like, in your studies, because I know when people are doing research and they get like kind of like access to stuff, have you gotten to view any like ancient documents? Like,
I haven't been able to touch them myself, but I go to the Graduate Theological Union Library at UC Berkeley, and they have some great books that actually have not just photograms of the actual manuscripts, you can see them, but they also have the text written out both in the Greek forms and in the translation forms, so that you can actually see where the holes are in the manuscript and which words are being reconstructed or hypothesized, and which ones are there. That's the great thing about doing this book in the 21st century, is there's so much of this stuff available without even leaving your room, basically. You can
a lot of it's available online now.
Absolutely, yeah. In fact, I think the Dead Sea Scrolls are available online now, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
That's kind of cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I actually wanted to know how Origin... Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, they don't really have any impact on the Jesus and early Christianity argument itself, because those are all, Hebrew scriptures. But still, I mean, it's fascinating stuff. And the guys who wrote that, the Essenes, were a fascinating bunch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually wanted to like follow up with some of the things that you had brought up in your speak at Skepticon, and so I actually looked for like, what did Origen say about Josephus, and I was able to find it online. I was like, oh wow, like I was actually able to read his words and stuff.
Yeah. There's some great websites out there with all kinds of ancient writings. Yeah.
The first time I ever heard of Origin was on Stargate.
Dave, I heard that you're working on a sequel to Nailed.
I am.
Can you give us a hint what's going to be in it?
Nailed too.
In fact, there's what a great question. It's going to be called Jesus Mything in Action, and I really, really wanted it to come out this year, but the Mormon book had such a troubled birthing process that it came out like 6 months and $1,000 over budget late. So Jesus Mything in Action is going to have to come out next year, I'm afraid, I think. But I do have a sneak preview of it that's online now on Patheos blog. I think if you Google up, the name of the essay is called "Will the Real Jesus Please Stand Up?"
Yeah,
and Google that up and you'll find it. And that's like a 14-page, kind of in a nutshell, of what it do. What it does basically is it argues that the secular Jesuses, the so-called real Jesus that really must have existed, is just as hypothetical as any of the Jesuses of faith. And I give examples of why the criteria that we get, that secular historians tell us, used to determine what's the real Jesus, don't hold up. And in fact, so much of what a lot of people will try to tell you we know about Jesus is a function of what we learned about first century Judea.
Yeah.
And you can come across this in some books. Since Jesus was a Jew in his 30s, that meant blah 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 blah. It's like, no, dude, that means Jews in their 30s from first century. But this guy, you have to be real first before that is true.
I just want to say this. Dawkins Dog in the chat room said if Jesus had been born today, he wouldn't be a carpenter. He'd be a pool guy.
That's a great line.
You can walk across the top of the pool, pick up all the leaves without the net.
Well, it's funny too. Is it depends which gospel Jesus you're talking about, because Mark's Jesus is he's a very no frills Jesus, very humble, very suffering, fallible. He loses his temper. He can be an asshole sometimes, and he doesn't always get his miracles right. By the time we get to John's Jesus, he's like super Jesus. I call him the Superman without a Clark Kent, because he's constantly wandering around Judea talking about how he's God. And it's like, well, was there a rock shortage at this time? How did he not get stoned to death 5 minutes out of the gate?
They tried to stone him. He had to swim across the river to escape a crowd that wanted to stone him for saying he was God.
Yeah. We tried to point this out. Joe was telling me one time he tried to point this out to some Christians on there. We actually posted this in one of our Bible contradictions, and he's like pointing this right out to him. It's like, well, what reason why? He's trying to get away from the crowd. If anybody around that time period says, hey, I'm God, hey, you know what? Hey, let's stone the fucker.
Yeah.
It's the God and I are one versus the Father is greater than I quote in John. Yeah. Two different verses that contradict each other.
Absolutely. There's so many clues like that in all four Gospels that show where they've been reworked and added, especially in John. I mean, John, they've tacked on all their endings. They have him going in a speech saying, all right, come, let us go, and then speaking for another 2 chapters, There's a great session where it talks about he did his first miraculous sign, and then he did his second miraculous sign, and then he did more miracles, and then he did his third miraculous sign. It's like, so someone's been padding the books,
Can I start asking David questions?
Yes,
now?
Joe. All right, Joe, you've monopolized Dave's time.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm so excited to talk to Dave.
Guys, don't fight.
I
There's
have
enough
as
for me
well.
to go around.
Listen, man.
And I am looking forward to hear what Dave
Let's
asked
share
Dave.
David and I are friends now.
Yes.
We're hanging out.
Oh, by the way, Dave, you have a great email address. I wanted to give it to Joe, but I didn't have your permission, so I
go for it.
Okay, I'll tell him. I'll tell him after the show. I won't.
No, you can tell everybody on the show. It's all right.
All right. Everybody,
Will you give it to me too?
Okay, sure.
Oh, you got, baby.
It's everybody
All
loves.
right.
It's everybody loves Dave at gmail.com. Awesome.
That's beautiful. Why didn't I do that?
And you can find me on Facebook too, and please do.
Yes. Yeah, he's on Facebook, and if you're on Facebook,
I found you on Twitter. I liked you on Twitter. I followed you on Twitter.
Yeah, in theory, I'm on Twitter, but in actual reality, I need to relearn to Twitter because I almost never ever tweet anything.
You know what you can do is you can link your Twitter and your Facebook account, so anything that posts your Facebook account.
That's what I've been trying to do. Everybody keeps telling me that I haven't never been able to master that.
Yeah,
so
it's not too hard.
Sometimes
my Twitter presence will go up immensely after that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then after tonight, it'll go way up, maybe 3 or 4 times.
Nice.
There's a great atheist community on Twitter. You should get involved.
Absolutely.
Yeah, really, man. Seriously.
I got it. Just for secular student lines, if nothing else. Hey, you know what? Let me give a quick shout out to the Atheist Film Festival. If anybody's hearing this on the West Coast,
fuck you for taking my question.
Oh no! But I was going to say, I'm really jazzed because it's coming up next month, and we've got some great films coming this year. I'm very excited about it.
Cool.
So that's something to if you need an excuse to come to San Francisco in September, there's the one.
Oh, well, now I have to drive out there in September. No,
yeah, you got to.
I barely airplanes. Okay, well, I barely have time. I barely have the money to drive to the gas station to get to the grocery store. So,
well, I feel your pain.
Yeah. Anyway, Dave wants to ask some questions. He apparently.
Well, I've got some questions planned here.
Sure, there you go for it.
Can I ask the tough questions now?
Ask the tough questions.
Those are my favorites.
Oh, good. So you're one of the first people that I've interviewed on here that has a Wikipedia page. Do you ever turn around and say to yourself, like, I've got to beef this page up?
You know what? I do have to beef that up. I was just realizing I haven't checked it in ages, and the last time I saw it, it's like, oh, we got to fix this, got to fix that. Yeah, I don't Google myself enough, clearly.
I tried to do that in private. Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Yes.
Yeah,
Your
I do need to beef up that.
page is a bit lackluster, but it does provide some questions for me.
Go for it.
Yeah. So
I think I know where you're going with this, but go ahead.
where do you think I'm going with it?
Are you going about my other writing that I do that's not biblical history?
No, but hold on. You are the co-founder of the first atheist film festival?
The world's first. That is exactly true.
Wow.
Co-founder. Yep. I'm also
That's
co-founder
awesome.
of Godless Pervert Story Hour with Greta Christina and Chris Hall.
Okay.
I'm gonna. Is that a podcast? Because I gotta find that now.
No, actually, that's a literary event that happens about 3 or 4 times a year in San Francisco.
Oh, you gotta turn that into a podcast. I'm so totally stealing that name.
You know what? Actually, your wish may become true. Next year's Free Thought blog convention, we're going to be doing a live stream in February.
Oh, cool.
For that. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, I believe this is my time.
Okay.
Oh, you're right. Sorry. Go.
Defend your time, Dave.
Defend it.
You gotta fight for it, Dave. You gotta want it.
Evolution Palooza.
Yeah, Evolution Palooza. That's San Francisco's oldest Darwin Day festival, also co-founded by yours truly. It's just basically a big birthday party for Chucky D for Darwin Day.
Chucky D. I love it.
Oh, I just want to punch in here real quick.
Yeah, Darwin,
Dogs,
yes.
the Atheist Film Festival really needs its own godless Sharknado equivalent.
Oh yeah, it does. That's awesome.
Okay, here's the
More
hard
questions? Oh, come on. No, go ahead.
Here's the hard
Seriously,
question. I had a couple questions I think he answered, but here's where I buckled down on asking him questions.
You've got a lot of nerve, Dave.
Ask away.
What kind of evidence would a historian look for in order to decide whether or not what Josephus said about Jesus was interpolation or not?
That is an excellent question. First of all, any ancient writing we have is never taken at face value right off the bat. There's reason to doubt every single ancient writing we come across, no matter what you're talking about. The Iliad, the Odyssey, the Bible, the Bhagavad Gita, anything, the tax records in Egypt. There's always, if you don't have other lines of evidence that support it, you have to weigh your skepticism accordingly. In fact, there's lots of reasons that I talk about in the book where there's lines of evidence that the passage in Josephus is not legit. For instance, just for one, it doesn't fit in the context of the chapter. It's like the whole chapter is this doom and gloom chapter, and all of a sudden in the middle of this, there's a massacre there, there's all the Jews get kicked out of Rome there, and in the middle of all this tales of woe, there's this shiny little commercial for Jesus that sticks out like a Britney Spears video in the middle of a funeral.
I love that analogy.
Yeah, it's a commercial for Jesus coming from a guy who's supposedly, a Jewish Pharisee.
Yeah. What would he care about Jesus? I mean, come on.
Exactly. And somebody pointed this out recently. In fact, it was a Dominican priest saying that even if every single thing in that little suspicious sentence, that paragraph was true, was legitimate to Josephus, if he really did write it, he didn't. It still comes so late in the century, and it doesn't tell us anything that your average Christian wouldn't have said, on the street.
Right.
So it's not even good evidence for Jesus, even if it was real, which is something I didn't get around to saying in the book because it's so obviously not real.
Right, and you know what? There's the Christians and a lot of people actually say this. There's an old saying: "Pix or it didn't happen."
You know what? Actually, that puts me in mind of another question. Is one of the things that comes out in the book is that the book of Luke. Luke is Christians love talking about what a great kick-ass historian he is, mostly because he's not getting his story from anybody who would have been an eyewitness. So he better be a goddamn good historian to get it right.
Yeah.
And mostly they say that because in his first verse of his book, he says, "Oh, I'm a great historian and did all the work." So you go, "Oh, okay, great." But the fact is, we know for a fact that Luke based some of his historical window dressing on things that Josephus wrote in his book, Jewish Antiquities, a book that was written in the year 93 or 94. So that's the absolute earliest the Gospel of Luke could have been written. And in fact, it probably was written much later than that, sometime in the early 2nd century. Around.
Okay, so here's a question. You as a historian, are there any contemporary historical people to the time of Jesus who you would consider legitimate to speak of Jesus?
Yeah. In fact, in the chapter I mentioned by name people that we would have expected to have some mention of it. The biggest one that comes to mind is Flavius Josephus, because he's the one who's our go-to guy for everything that happens in Judea.
But he's clearly not a legitimate person to speak about.
I'm sorry?
He's clearly, that's interpolation with him.
Yeah, that passage in interpolation, but it's interesting to see that Josephus didn't talk about Jesus, because if he did, he would have described him as a charlatan, like he described all the other would-be messiahs at the time. But even more so, we have his sources, like Nicholas of Damascus, who was in Herod's court. We have people like Philo of Alexandria and Justus of Tiberias that we know about that were historians at the time, or at least writers in the time, commentators at the time, who would have been in a great position to talk about any of the things that happened in Jesus' career, if in fact they really happened. And the tricky part about this is that's the kind of thing that makes it really clear that the divine miracle-working Jesus couldn't have happened, because we have way too many people on the ground that were there that could have, if there had been earthquakes that struck Jerusalem twice, and if, all the dead holy people out in the Jerusalem cemetery came out of their graves and wandered in the streets of Jerusalem, as Matthew says it did, and nobody else on the planet, somebody would have noticed, But instead,
so how many historical Jesuses?
Say that one more time. I lost you.
Well, okay. So most historians have a number of different historical Jesuses that they point to.
Right, and that's part of the problem, because we have so many different reconstructed Jesuses, and they all sound perfectly plausible until you read the next one.
So do you think that that's an amalgamation of all of them, or
what's happened is we've got this plethora of different Jesuses, and none of them are particularly far-fetched, none of them are implausible, and Jesus could have been a miracle worker, he could have been a Galilean shaman, he could have been a Hasidic rabbi, he could have been an early proto-feminist, but he couldn't very well have been all these things at the same time. And that's where we get a problem. Because when you actually try to pin down what we can really know and not know about what he really did and really said, you realize it's a sinking sand. We just don't have anything to base any single solitary fact about Jesus. And all our sources, none of them can agree on, we can't even agree that he even existed on Earth. When you put all the Christian sources together.
I tend to agree with what you're saying. Now, I promised Joe that I would ask you if about you being a fencer.
About
you're
what?
A fencer.
Yeah, about being a fencer.
Yeah, I have a very expensive watch that needs to be done and taken care of. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's a different kind of fence.
I've been a sword fighter for...
Can you explain to me the rules of fencing?
I'm sorry? Say the whole thing again.
Explain to me the rules of fencing.
The rules of fencing. Oh, dear. Well, in a nutshell, there's 3 types of fencing weapons. There's sabers, epées, and foils. But in fact, the kind of fencing I like best is called Florentine style, which I learned from my girlfriend Dana Fredsty, who was a Hollywood stunt woman in the movie Army of Darkness.
Wow!
We I
love that movie.
3. You heard of it? You seen it?
I love that movie. That's a funny ass movie.
She's in that movie, baby.
Cool.
I'm looking at props from the movie as we speak, right in our living room.
Wait, you have props from the Army of Darkness in your living room?
Yeah, she's got one of the helmets. She was a Deadite and one of the sword captains. And
you are a god.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome.
Did your wife get to meet Joseph Campbell?
You mean Bruce Campbell?
Bruce Campbell.
Oh God, yeah.
Joseph Campbell.
She never met Joseph Campbell. I would love to have met Joseph Campbell, but she knows Bruce Campbell. Yeah.
Cool.
She's heard the line,
That's hot.
"This is my
That's
boob
hot.
stick," so many times that she never wants to hear that line again.
Oh,
My goodness.
On the set, not off set.
oh, so we're talking to somebody that's actually was in a movie, or is the wife of somebody that's actually in a movie. That's
That's what we
and
call
I'm
sugar
in
talk, baby.
Michigan. I'm in Michigan here, so Bruce Campbell has been here to film his first movie.
well, now we got to get Bruce Campbell on the show.
There you go. You know the great thing I learned about Bruce Campbell from her is that when you see Ash, you see Bruce Campbell. What you see is what you get. That is exactly how he is.
Oh, that's awesome.
She's in the other room telling me to shut up now. We're in trouble. Yeah.
Oh,
Stop.
man.
Okay, no more Bruce Campbell talk.
All right.
Sword fighting. Yeah, the style of sword fighting we like best is called Florentine, where you have a real sword in one hand and a real dagger in the other. And that's why my arms look as scarred up as they do. But it's a blast. It's an utter blast.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
Sword fighting is awesome, and you should all do it.
Yeah, Joe, Dave, did you have any other questions for Dave?
I did, but I'm trying to really quickly flip through his book and find stuff.
Where's that question? I just read it.
I did. I had a question, but I'm trying to find the page. I can't do it.
Okay, Dave,
I'm-
I'll tell you. I'll
While
tell you
you're
what.
looking it up, I just want to address one common thing because
Sure.
increasingly I find out it's not the Christians who bug the shit out of me when they shit on my book, but it's my fellow atheists who they come to me and they say, "Oh, mythicism, that was all blown away in the 1800s and stuff like that." Those are the guys that really get up my nose because they act as if all this stuff was sorted out long ago, and they're totally parroting without knowing it the evangelical, propaganda line, basically. I don't want to be one of those guys that says, "Oh, I'm a maverick and I'm bucking the system," and I've got the real scoop. The fact is, most of what I argue, and none of these are my ideas. None of these are new ideas. Maybe 3 ideas in that whole book are my ideas, and the rest all come from historians across the theological spectrum. But what you've got to know is most of this stuff isn't even controversial in historical circles. It's been the majority opinion for over 100 years, sometimes over 200 years. It's just the conclusions of that.
Can I keep asking you questions?
Oh, do.
For a minute?
I want to hear more questions for Dave from Dave.
Yeah,
Okay.
Dave on Dave, actually.
Okay. So, in the historical world, is it considered to be a faux pas for you to consider that Jesus never existed? Or is that something that is accepted? And on top of that, how do you respond to the people who say that that's a faux pas for you to say?
Yeah, and I get that all the time. What happens is there's been so much crappy, shitty mythicist writing out there that started, in the 19th century and has gone on to today. And there's so much crap on the internet about Jesus and what Jesus really was and who Jesus really was that I don't blame people.
Zeitgeist.
Exactly. Zeitgeist in a nutshell. Yeah. There's so many bad, shitty, unsupportable theories about what Jesus really was as he was a myth that it just makes what I think legitimate mythicists, like me, like Earl Doherty, like Richard Carrier, like Robert Price, it makes our work harder.
Talk about Richard Carrier a lot in this book.
I love Richard Carrier. I mean, honestly,
I know you
without Richard Carrier, this book would be as bad as the Christians say it is now.
Richard Carrier is awesome.
He is awesome. He's a freaking genius, and I don't say that lightly.
I recently watched a bunch of his videos about this subject, and I was blown away. I loved the patterns in the Gospels, like the beginning line and the end line match up, and then the second line and the second to last line match up, kind of patterns.
There's so much more going on in the Gospels that most people don't know. But actually, before we get too much onto that, I want to get back to that first talk about you'd mentioned. Is it faux pas for historical? Is it taboo to be talking about this kind of thing?
Yeah, no, I.
What I wanted to get across was if you ask any historian any kind of history question. If it's outside their field, they'll say, "Well, I'm not a specialist in blah blah blah," but this biblical historians say blah blah blah. Well, who are biblical historians? If you look at them, the vast majority throughout time, as long as there's been a field of biblical history, they have been religious people, and specifically, they've been clergy people. They've been mostly Protestant, some Catholic, some Jewish, but the majority of the field, and I think the majority always will be, of religious people, and even the secular historians like Bart Ehrman, like others out there, and there are an increasing number of those as well, even most of them, in fact, I can't think of any who haven't come out of a religious background, including myself. So there's a huge bias from the existing pool of biblical historians against the mythicist theory. And I don't mean that to cite as a cop-out. It's just a fact that most of these guys not only are on a first-name basis with Jesus, they work for Jesus, you know? So how open are they going to be to the idea that there was no Jesus at all? It's a serious problem with biblical history. In fact, Hector Avalos, the biblical historian, has written a book called The End of Biblical Studies, where he makes the argument that biblical studies, and in particular Jesus studies, have become a complete joke, a complete failure, and we should just stop doing it. And I think he makes a great point.
Okay, I've got another question.
Do
it. Your book is in my hands, and I'm looking at myth number 7. Archaeology confirms the Gospels, and it says Scripture contains many contradictions and many statements which are not literally true, but must be read spiritually and mystically.
Yeah, that's Origen giving the commentary on John.
Origen commentary on John, Book 10, Chapter 4. Who actually said that?
Exactly. I mean, when you hear stuff like that coming from these church fathers, it really is an eye-opening thing. That's really an extraordinary thing for them to say, is that, oh, by the way, you know, you can't really take this thing at face value, you know. And there's all these nudge, wink, winks to their fellow clergymen, you know.
Yeah.
It was just how religion was done back then.
But who actually said that?
Who actually said that out loud, you mean? Or
yeah, aloud. Who said that aloud? Who
that was
said
Origen,
this
the Church
quote
Father
that
Origen.
you put in your book aloud? I'm asking the hard questions.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm feeling kind of dumb because I'm not understanding what the question is. You're saying who said that particular quote, or who said that this is all bullshit?
Who said the quote?
Oh, that was Origen, the Church Father Origen.
Ah,
okay.
Yeah.
Tell me about him.
He's an interesting guy. He actually ended his life being condemned as a heretic, but he did things like, for instance, he wrote a book called Contra Celsus, where he took on the arguments that this pagan philosopher was aiming at Christianity. And the great thing is most of his arguments still hold up. In fact, all the arguments that we have from people in the 2nd century and 3rd century criticizing Christianity, they're just as valid today. They haven't changed at all. One of the things that Celsus said was he accused Christians of changing their own scriptures. And in fact, we have abundant textual evidence to prove that, too, now. Well, the great thing is, Origen said, oh, no, only heretics change scriptures. Real Christians, trademark, ding, would never do that, you know.
Okay, I have two more questions.
And yet, then he turns around, and when he's talking in letters to other Christians, he's complaining about them changing their scriptures. So they're so two-faced. It's amazing.
I have two more questions. One is from Dawkins Dog in the chat room.
Okay.
Who says, what is David's opinion on the claim the evidence of the Corinth Creed within a few years of the crucifixion is evidence for it happening?
Okay, he's talking about an early pre-Pauline element in Corinthians where it's a laundry list of the people who saw the risen Jesus. The first thing I should say is if you even take that laundry list at face value, it doesn't match up with any of the appearances we have in any of our Gospels, for starters. So that's a hint and a half that something's not kosher right there. And another thing is, he's describing people who saw the risen Lord. He doesn't say anything about Jesus appearing on earth before this. As I said before, he never even uses the word disciples. He talks about how he learned about Jesus. He constantly tells us that everything he learned about Jesus was through Scripture and from revelation, from visions of God. He never gives us the story that Luke gives us 3 times about the road to Damascus, that conversion story. He never tells us anything remotely like that. He says that he sought out the Scriptures and learned about Jesus that way. And so, in essence, he's telling us that all these other people, this laundry list of people who are normally cited to be witnesses to the risen Christ, he's saying they've had the same experience that he's had. This is far from proving that there was a historical Jesus. This is saying just the opposite, that all these guys who were supposedly witnessed the same way he did, including 500 brethren of the Lord, that don't even make it into any gospel story we have at all. And there's even weird ways that he talks about the apostles and the disciples. There's not the disciples, but the 12, and then Peter, as if these are separate groups altogether. So there's some very strange features about that creed.
One more question for me, and then I'm done.
Yeah.
He's done.
Keep them coming. That's
I'm done. Okay, so earlier we were talking about theories and hypotheses.
Yes.
And we were talking about null versus alternative. What are your thoughts on that? You said you would elaborate later.
Yeah, well, my whole last chapter of the book is a chapter called Can Jesus Be Saved? And in that, I describe all the ways that I think history and early Christianity would look differently even if there had just been a guy named Jesus.
Which is null versus alternative. But please explain what that is before you elaborate.
Oh, what I meant by that is saying, can it be falsifiable? And this is ways it can be falsifiable. That's all I meant by that.
It's clearly unfalsifiable.
So, I'm sorry?
I believe that it's unfalsifiable to a certain extent, but at the same time,
say more about that.
That it's unfalsifiable. No, I think.
Are you saying that the theory that there was no Jesus is unfalsifiable?
The claims within the Bible are falsifiable.
Gotcha. Well, they certainly get presented by Christians to be unfalsifiable. But I mean, it's ridiculous to say that because obviously they are very falsifiable. In fact, the essential take home of the whole book for me comes down to this one paradox, saying that if Jesus was this amazing guy who did all these incredible miracles, or at least taught all these new revolutionary things and changed the whole world, why did no one notice for at least 100 years outside his small, tiny little cultlet?
Yeah.
And on the other hand, if he didn't do all these amazing miracles and teach all these amazing things, then how was it we had all these feuding little cultlets scattered all over the empire that couldn't agree about the first basic fact of his life? To me, when you have those two brute facts together, boom, that means there's a serious problem with our Jesus, no matter what Jesus you're talking about.
Yeah. All right, Dave, do you have any other questions?
I do, but I'll talk to him later.
Okay. All right. I'll tell you what. We'll try to take a few questions from the chat room. We had a few building up, but because everybody was talking, we weren't able to get them all in. Dawkins Dog had some questions, I believe. I'll see if I can
Dawkins Dog is Richard Dawkins' dog. He actually tweets.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
A talking dog. Those English can really do the amazing things. Is that like Darwin's bulldog?
Yeah, he said he wants to kidnap you. He said he wants to kidnap you and put you on Facebook because he's.
If I had a nickel for everyone who told me that,
you could pay your own ransom.
Exactly.
Yeah, he wants to take you to his Facebook page and say, "Look at these fuckers,"
Take me. I'm so easy to find on Facebook. Everybody should find me on Facebook.
Yeah.
Well, I want all of you to argue with this person I'm arguing with on Twitter right now.
Oh, no. That's an awesome thing. I gotta say, it's an awesome time to be an atheist right now because Christians and all those other religions, they are losing. And they know they're losing. It's beautiful to watch. It's beautiful.
Yes.
The only scary thing is as the more reasonable and open-minded ones disappear, you're left with this hard, crunchy nugget of whack job fundamentalists that are never going to change their mind. And that's going to get ugly and more desperate the more Christianity goes down the toilet.
They're not going to go quietly.
They're not going to go quietly into that good night, yeah.
Okay, we got one from Dawkins Stock here. He says, Dave wants to know what's your response to the claim that Jesus doubters are no better than Holocaust deniers, an often quoted attack I see.
I get so fed up with that analogy, and also the analogy that it's no better than creationism, and that it's no better than fill in the blank, whack job, nut job, Methodist theory. The fact is, evolution didn't come about, out of a vacuum. It came because there was this groundswell of evidence that overmounted, the theological what do you want to call it? The domination of science, basically. There was a time when science was completely under the sway of the church, and yet evolution still came out on top because all the cracks in the story started coming up until people started talking about it, and it couldn't be excused away. That is the same thing with mythicism, which is happening. There's so many presumptions and so many misinformation about the official story of Jesus that I tried to bring out and nailed. And those same, what do you want to call it, operating under misconceptions are also found in secular assessments of Jesus. And that's such a tangled jungle. It's the analogies does not hold up for the simple fact that we've got evidence for what we're saying. We're not just pulling stuff out of our ass.
Right, and that's they always seem to think that we're just making shit up. It's like, no, you've got a book full of shit that's just made up.
Yep. And again, I want to say, most of the stuff that makes up this case that we have, most of that is majority opinion. It's not crazy crackpot stuff atheists came up with. Atheists didn't invent the synoptic problem. That's been recognized for over 200 years, you know.
So David, do you feel that most historians at this point feel that Jesus did not exist? And how long do you think there is before there's a paradigm shift?
Well, I think just in the last 15 years, we are pushing towards a paradigm shift. Nice. I think Richard Carrier's latest book, Proving History, and his forthcoming book on the historicity of Jesus, I think that's going to be a big-ass paradigm shift for history, because those books have the potential to change how all history is done, not just Jesus studies. So it is very exciting. I don't like being on the minority, and I'm going to always be in the minority.
Do you feel that you're in the minority? Or do you feel like,
I'm clearly in the minority, and I'm always going to be among biblical historians for as long as there is such a field as biblical history. But I'm okay with that, because I think the minority is right in this, and I think because we're on the verge of a paradigm shift. What's happening now is that what Christians don't realize when they say things like, oh, well, no historian has doubted that there was a Jesus. Well, that's only half true. All the secular historians think there was a Jesus, but they don't think your Jesus existed. The miracle-working Jesus, they can prove. I mean, in chapter 1 of Nailed, we pretty much dismissed that guy.
Sure, I read that
right off the
chapter.
Bat. What they haven't done the math yet is that all the other secular Jesus, even if only one of them is right, that's enough to debunk your Jesus. So it's like, you've got to stop saying that, because they don't believe your Jesus existed. And that's a serious concern. But that said, I could see it. I could see the evidence shifting. I'd like to think it happens in my lifetime. Maybe it won't happen in my lifetime, but maybe it will. Things are changing much faster now than they ever were. And like I said, 15 years ago, it never even crossed my mind there was no Jesus. Now,
so you think there's a potential paradigm shift within 15 years of now?
It could happen. It could totally happen.
Okay.
I think the potential is
That's
there.
Awesome. I dig that.
I have a quick question. You've probably seen these reports that Christianity is going to be dead in the year 2050 or 2060 or whatever it is. What do you feel? Do you think that's accurate, or do you think it'll go away sooner?
Well, people have been saying the death knell of Christianity has been coming for 150 years at least, ever since the Enlightenment, really.
True.
I think what is more apt to happen is that Christianity will continue to mutate and adapt, as it has done so beautifully for 2,000 years plus. I mean, if you don't believe in evolution, look at Christianity, because that is an example of Darwinian evolution in action, big time. I mean, I think that's more apt to happen, that Christianity is going to become this amorphous blob thing that's so watered down and so we won't recognize it as Christianity, I suspect.
Yeah, there's like 35,000 different sects out there, you know.
Yeah, or actually, what's even more happening right now is this current generation of kids in college is the least religious generation in human history. Those numbers just keep going up, and the Christian numbers and all the other believers keep going down. And there's reasons for that, and not least of which is that they're right. You know, that Christianity is not true, and none of the others are either.
All right. Do we have any last questions from the chat room here? John Loftus argues that Christianity adapts the culture just as much as the culture adapts to Christianity. That's from Dawkins Dog. What do you think on that?
I'd say that whole thing again. I'm sorry, the Christianity gap.
He says John Loftus argues that Christianity adapts to the culture as much as the culture adapts to Christianity. What
Absolutely. In fact, I would say even more so. When you look at what Christianity has done and said and preached over the last 2,000 years, you could take little core slices, every 100 years, they wouldn't know what to say to each other. There used to be a time when everybody knew the world was flat because the Bible said so. There was a time when they used to know that slavery was cool because the Bible said so.
It's in the Bible. It's got to be true.
It's in the Bible. Women should shut up in church because the Bible says so. The just cherry picking has just become so much that Christianity just keeps trying to play catch up with humanist values and science, and that's what they've been doing all this time. When they can't keep science down, they try to catch up and say, "Oh, the Bible's always taught it," But it's crap.
Yeah.
And they can't. That shtick's gotten old and tired. It's asinine, and they can't keep it up forever.
Right. Well, I think that's the last of the chat. The questions we're going to get from the chat room, and I'm going to have a hell of a time trying to get this all edited. So,
Dave Fitzgerald.
This is a good interview, Dave. Your picture is epic, by the way. You look very skeptical.
You look like you're looking. It's like he's looking right at me here. He's sitting there going,
Which picture are you talking about?
He's been staring at me all night long. He's like,
is that the one with the weird curly Q
yes.
wall? I love that picture.
Yes.
Yeah. What is that behind you, by the way?
That's just it was taken in a friend of mine's office. She's a psychoanalyst in San Francisco, and I just love that weird curly Q thing. It looks like crazy thoughts are coming out of my head, so I love it.
She has that there to fuck with patients.
Of course you hang out with psychoanalysts.
Actually, the person whose office that is the person who came up with the name Nailed for the book.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
nice. That's cool.
Best title ever.
Best title ever.
It's probably brazed or maybe welded, but okay.
I think it's brushed aluminum. I don't know what it is, but it's totally cool.
Yes.
Cool.
All right. Anyway, like I said, we do need to get going. But Dave, thank you so much for joining us here on the show.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for staying up late with me.
Oh, we stay up late like this all the time. Yes, and if you missed the live show, well, you can come back again next Friday. We're gonna drag Dave back here next. No, I'm just kidding.
Seriously, bring me anytime because I still got more books to pump out.
There you go.
It was awesome to talk to you, Dave. I've been a long admirer. It's awesome.
Oh, that is so awesome to hear. Well, friend me on Facebook and tell me more great things about me.
Dave, I just found you on Twitter, and I'll follow you on there. And I never Twitter.
Until I figure out how to link it to my Facebook, it's pointless.
I'll help you after the show. I'll help
you.
Once
you get Twitter, you're going to get addicted. So
yeah.
Awesome. I'm a little scared of that.
Once you get hooked into Twitter, you will not have a life again.
Hey, speaking of next time I'm on the show, I've got a new book on the Mormons to pimp out too.
Sure. Yeah, when it's ready, just let us know.
I didn't even talk about all the secret erotica I write on the side.
Ooh!
Heretic-friendly erotica.
Oh, yes.
That's the show right there, man.
All right. Well, that's the name of our new title of our next show. Heretic...
David Fitzgerald, Heretic-friendly erotica. I'm
turned on right now just listening to that.
Here's 2 words to remember: Kilt, Kilpatrick.
Ooh. I'm getting.
I'll say no more.
That's his pen name.
I'm getting hot already.
Is that a Detroit illusion? Because I live here.
No, it's not. Is there how would that be a Detroit
Kwame
illusion?
was an asshole. It's true.
Who's what?
Kwame
What?
Kilpatrick. Kwame Kilpatrick.
Kilpatrick? What? Who is?
Kwame Kilpatrick.
I don't know who that
I'm
is.
a Detroit person.
Oh no, totally coincidence. No relation.
Okay.
Oh, it's a correlation, not a causation.
Exactly. He's in the same tribe, but yeah.
Same tribe.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we desperately need to get going because.
All right, get some sleep, guys.
Yeah, well, that's not it. It's just my computer's gonna blow up.
You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
Right. But anyway. Anyway, Dave, you are of course welcome to come back anytime. And if you have a YouTube account, let me know, and I'll send you the interview so you can post up. I
need to set one up. Clearly,
yes, you should.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, you should.
All right, I'll put that on my short list of all the 9 bajillion other things to do too.
There you go.
All right, guys.
All right.
Great talking to you.
All right.
Take care.
Stick around, Dave, and we'll talk to you after the show. All right. Okay. If you want to get in touch with us and I know you do.
You do.
We're on Twitter and Facebook and everything like that. So if you want to get in touch with us, we're going to give you all that information right now.
Would you like to contact us? Your host, Packard Sonic, and his very honored and crazy co-host, with occasional guest hosts, enjoy your comments or suggestions. You can reach us 28 hours a day, 8 days a week on A Can on a String, Smoke Signals, Star Trek Communicator? Those may not work, but you can contact us on Twitter as Packard Pokes At, and by email at packardpokesat@gmail.com. You can also listen and join in the conversation live Friday nights at 9 p.m. Central Time on vaughnlive.tv/PackardPokesAt. You can find past shows on iTunes, YouTube, Mixler Radio, and Stitcher Radio. Help us out by rating, commenting, subscribing, retweeting, and reposting the show wherever you can. Click the like button on Facebook/PackardPokesAt to join in the conversation. Would you like to help keep the show running and pick up some awesome Packard Pokes At merchandise? Visit cafepress.com/PackardPokesAt today and buy hats, shirts, or one of over 300 other items that are also available. Visit packardpokesat.wordpress.com for links to the news articles covered tonight and more information on this or other episodes. We hope you enjoy the show. Thanks for listening and your support.
And thank you, Joe. Damn, you talk so fast tonight.
I rocked my Packard Pokes At t-shirt all over New York City recently.
Hey, yeah, I remember you telling me about that. You got
I tweeted you a picture of it.
Yes, you did. You actually did. I thought you just said that to my text.
Oh, I texted it to you. Yeah.
Yeah. You should post those up at Packard Pokes At over on Facebook there. So if you're not over at Facebook at facebook.com/Packard Pokes At, you're nowhere, man.
I'm looking for you on Facebook as we speak. In fact.
All right. Well, I'm on Facebook as Packard Sonic because.
Oh, got you. I got you there. Then. I got you. Hey, did I tell you guys I ran into a German website today that mentioned my book, and they said I read in German. They said this. I read Ehrman's book, then I read Fitzgerald's book, Nailed. I found it to be far better. I was like, yeah, baby.
Nice.
All right.
Nice.
All right. Well. Thanks everybody for coming. This has been Packard Pokes At, and of course, Dave, you're welcome back anytime. But like I said, we got to get going. So thanks everybody for coming. This has been Packard Pokes At. We just poked at your news,
and that's a wrap.